The Stellar Confederation's summit station floated like a jewel between the stars, its crystalline halls reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Kira Blackwood pressed her face against the observation deck window, watching alien ships dock. With graceful precision, she dreamed of this moment since childhood. But now that she stood here as her mother's aide, her hands trembled with nervous energy. "Remember, darling, we're here to save lives, not make friends," Ambassador Helena Blackwood said. Adjusting her daughter's collar, the older woman's face bore the weight of their mission to convince the galaxy's greatest empires that a cosmic anomaly would soon threaten everything they held dear. Kira nodded, though her heart raced for reasons beyond their dire warning. She'd studied xenobiology and diplomatic protocols, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of standing among beings from distant worlds. The Ashkaran delegation swept past them, their iridescent robes shifting color with each movement. She caught a glimpse of violet eyes that seemed to hold entire nebulae within them, and forgot to breathe. The main assembly hall buzzed with hundreds of alien voices creating a symphony of impossible sounds. Kira stayed close to her mother as they took their assigned seats in the section reserved for emerging species, a polite way of saying humanity was still considered primitive by galactic standards. "The Confederation recognizes Ambassador Helena Blackwood of Earth," the synthetic voice announced. Her mother rose with practiced grace, and Kira watched as skepticism rippled through the crowd before Helena even spoke. The human delegation's warning about the approaching anomaly had been circulating for weeks, dismissed by most as the paranoid fantasies of a young species trying to seem important. "Honored delegates," Helena began, her voice carrying despite the vast chamber, "our deep space monitoring stations have detected an anomaly moving through subspace. Its quantum signature matches theoretical models of a cascade." Laughter interrupted her. Not cruel laughter, but the indulgent kind reserved for children who claim monsters hide beneath their beds. The Emperor of the Ashkaran Empire, a being whose scales shifted from silver to gold, raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Blackwood, Emperor Vexus said, his voice like distant thunder, "Your species has been traveling the stars for barely a century. Do you truly believe you've discovered something our sensors, refined over millennia, have missed?" Kira's hands clenched in her lap. She'd run the calculations herself, verified the data until her eyes burned. The anomaly was real, and it would reach the outer colonies within 2 years. She started to rise, but her mother's subtle gesture kept her seated. After the assembly dismissed humanity's warning with polite condescension, Kira found herself at the evening reception, nursing a glass of synthesized wine that tasted like starlight and regret. She'd shed her formal jacket, leaving her in a simple black dress that felt woefully inadequate. Among the elaborate fashions of other worlds, "You're angry," a voice said beside her. The words were accented strangely, as if the speaker was tasting each syllable. Kira turned to find one of the Ashkarans watching her young, perhaps close to her age if such comparisons meant anything across species. His scales were deeper, purple, than his father's, and those violet eyes held curiosity rather than condescension. "Prince Zephyr," she said, recognizing him from her briefing materials. "I'm not angry. I'm frustrated." Because they laughed, he moved closer, and she caught a scent like ozone and jasmine. "My people value certainty above all else. Your warning threatens that certainty. The data doesn't care about anyone's values," Kira said, then winced. "I apologize, Your Highness." "That was honest," he finished, "and refreshing. Tell me about this anomaly. Not the diplomatic version, tell me what you really think." Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. Unlike the other delegates who'd dismissed her mother with barely concealed amusement, he seemed genuinely interested. She pulled out her personal tablet, her fingers flying across the holographic display. "Here," she said, projecting a small model between them. "The anomaly exists partially in subspace, which is why traditional sensors miss it. But look at these gravitational fluctuations." She explained the science, forgetting her nervousness as she lost herself in the data. Zephyr asked intelligent questions, challenging her assumptions without dismissing them. Other delegates glanced their way with disapproval, but neither noticed. "Your passion for this is compelling." Zephyr said when she finally paused. In my culture, we have a saying, truth glows brightest in the darkness of disbelief. Is that your way of saying you believe me? Kira asked. It's my way of saying I'd like to hear more. His scales shifted to a warmer hue. Perhaps somewhere, with fewer disapproving eyes, she knew she should decline. Fraternizing with alien royalty went against every protocol her mother had drilled into her. But something about the way he looked at her not as a primitive human, but as an equal maid. Her nod. There's an observation lounge on deck 7, she said. It's usually empty during receptions. As they left together, neither noticed Emperor Vexus watching from across the room, his golden scales darkening with disapproval. Nor did they see the knowing smile on Ambassador Blackwood's face as she observed her daughter walking beside the Ashkaran prince, their bodies unconsciously matching each other's rhythm as if they'd been walking together for years. The stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the hearts beginning to beat in sync below or to the approaching darkness that would soon test every bond in the galaxy. 3 weeks after the summit, Kira stared at her communication console in the small quarters she shared with her mother. Aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, the official channels remained coldly silent. No Empire had requested additional data about the anomaly, but hidden beneath layers of encryption, a different kind of message waited. The Aurora dancers performed tonight. I thought of your explanation of quantum entanglement and wondered if beauty and science are more connected than my tutors claimed. Her heart fluttered as she crafted her reply, fingers hesitating over each word. Their correspondence had begun innocently enough, Zephyr requesting clarification on certain data points, but somewhere between discussions of subspace mechanics and gravitational wave patterns, their messages had transformed into something else entirely. Everything is connected. Your Einstein understood this, yes, Zephyr had written in one of his first personal messages, though I confess, I find your human tendency to name everything after individuals rather peculiar. We say the harmony of motion where you say Newton's laws. Kira smiled, remembering her response. Maybe we name things after people because we're terrified of being forgotten. When your species lives for centuries, legacy means something different than when you only have decades. Now, she typed carefully, aware that even their encrypted channel could be monitored. I've been reading about Aurora dancers. Your world's atmospheric phenomena sound breathtaking. We have something similar, the Northern Lights. Ancient humans thought they were bridges to the realm of gods. She attached a file Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major and added, this is how one human interpreted the night sky. Music is our way of translating the universe into emotion. The response came faster than usual. I'm listening now. How does sound create such feeling? My chest constricts, though not unpleasantly. Is this what humans call melancholy? Their exchanges had become her secret salvation. During the frustrating weeks of diplomatic stonewalling, while her mother attended meeting after meeting, presenting evidence to increasingly dismissive audiences, Kira found solace in Zephyr's curiosity about humanity. Tell me about coffee, he'd written once. The Ashkaran diplomatic report describes it as burnt plant matter humans inexplicably consume. But you speak of it with reverence. She'd laughed, sending him a detailed explanation of humanity's relationship with caffeine, from ancient Ethiopian legends to modern cafe culture. In return, he'd shared the ritual of Thenya ceremony, where Ashkarans harmonized their bioelectric fields. During important decisions, you're glowing, her mother observed. One morning, finding Kira smiling at her console over breakfast, just reviewing the sensor data, Kira lied, quickly closing Zephyr's latest message, a treatise on Ashkaran poetry that had somehow become a discussion of how different species experienced love. Helena raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The growing tension between Earth and the Ashkaran Empire made any personal communication politically dangerous. Emperor Vexus had become the most vocal opponent of the human fear-mongering, as he called it. But late at night, when the ship's corridors grew quiet, Kira would curl up in her bunk and exchange messages with someone who understood her in ways that transcended species. My father held court today, Zephyr wrote one evening. He spent an hour ridiculing your mother's latest presentation. I wanted to stand and show them the models you've shared with me, the elegant mathematics of catastrophe. Approaching, but you'd be betraying your emperor, Kira finished for him. I'd be betraying my father, he corrected, which, in Ashkaran culture, is far worse. We're shaped from birth to be extensions of our bloodline's will, individual thought is. Discouraged, yet you're writing to me. Yes, the single word carried. Wait, even through text. I've run your calculations through our own systems, Kira. Quietly. Privately. The anomaly is real. My people's pride will kill them. She sent him Yeats that night, The Second Coming, and explained humanity's long relationship with apocalyptic poetry. He responded with an Ashkaran piece about the first silence, when their species nearly went extinct from refusing to adapt to climate change on their home world. We survived by finally listening to those we dismissed as lesser, he wrote. History repeats, as you humans say. Their conversations deepened as the weeks passed. Kira shared her favorite films, trying to explain the human concept of cinema to someone whose species communicated partially through color-shifting scales. Zephyr sent her recordings of Aurora Dancer's atmospheric creatures that fed on electromagnetic fields and moved like liquid light across his world's sky. In your culture, is it common to think of someone constantly? Zephyr asked one night. I find myself seeing purple-blue in the spectrum. Your eye color even when your system's away. Kira stared at the message, her pulse racing. She'd been careful not to acknowledge the growing feelings between them, the impossible attraction that defied biology and politics alike. But his directness, so different from human courtship, demanded honesty. It's called longing, she typed. Slowly, and yes, it's common when someone becomes important to you. Dangerous, in our case, but common. Everything worthwhile is dangerous, he replied. My mother once told me that before my father had her executed for treason. The casual mention of such violence reminded Kira how different their worlds truly were, yet somehow, in the space between their words, they'd built their own small universe where such differences mattered less than the connection they shared. Play me another piece of your music, Zephyr requested. Something that explains this feeling, this weight in my chest, when I think of the distance between us. She sent him Barber's Adagio for strings without comment. His response came an hour later. Now I understand why humans fear death so much. You feel everything so intensely, so briefly. We Ashkarans stretch our emotions across centuries, diluting them. You concentrate yours into moments. It's terrifying. It's beautiful. You're beginning to sound like a human, she teased. You're beginning to sound like hope, he replied. As her console dimmed for the night, Kira touched the screen where his words lingered. Tomorrow would bring more rejections, more laughter at humanity's expense. But tonight, she had this, a bridge built of forbidden frequencies, spanning the void between two hearts that should never have found each other. Outside her window, the stars continued their dance, and somewhere among them, an anomaly crept closer, indifferent to the love growing in its path. The first system to fail was a mining outpost in the Outer Vale, population 3,000, mostly automated. The distress signal lasted 12 seconds before cutting to static. By the time rescue ships arrived, they found only twisted metal and space, warped into impossible geometries. Kira watched the footage in the Harmony's conference room, her stomach churning. Around the table, her mother and the human diplomatic team studied the data with grim satisfaction. They'd been right. She wished desperately they'd been wrong. The Confederation is calling an emergency session, Helena announced. Suddenly, everyone wants to hear about our paranoid fantasies. Her datapad chimed a hidden notification beneath layers of official communications. Kira's heart jumped, but she couldn't check it here. Zephyr had been silent for 3 days, ever since the news broke. She tried not to think about what that meant. Later, alone in her quarters, she decoded his message. Everything's changed. The Empire is in chaos. Father admits privately that you were right, but refuses to acknowledge it publicly. And Kira, there's something else, someone else, I need to explain in person. Can you meet me at the Meridian Station, please? The Meridian Station served as neutral ground between territories, a massive trading post where different species mingled freely. Kira knew she shouldn't go. The political situation was deteriorating rapidly, and her mother needed her. But the desperation in Zephyr's message pulled at her. She arrived at the station's botanical section, where alien plants created impossible gardens under artificial stars. Zephyr waited beneath a tree that grew crystalline fruit, his scales a troubled deep purple when he saw her. They shifted through a spectrum of colors she'd learned to read: relief, joy, and something that looked like anguish. "Kira." He moved toward her, then stopped, maintaining formal distance. "Thank you for coming." "What's wrong?" She wanted to close the gap between them, but sensed his hesitation. "Your message: my father has accelerated my betrothal," he said quickly, as if the words burned. "Lady Nissa of the Crimson Nebula arrives tomorrow. The marriage alliance will secure their fleet for evacuating our outer colonies. We're to be joined within the week." The botanical garden's beauty suddenly felt oppressive. Kira forced her voice to remain steady. "That's politically sound. The Crimson Nebula has the largest evacuation vessels in the galaxy. Don't." His scales flared with color anger she'd learned, mixed with pain. "Don't be diplomatic. Not with me. Never with me. What do you want me to say?" The words came out sharper than intended. "That it hurts. That I've been foolish enough to fall in love with someone I can never have. That I check my messages every hour hoping to see your words." He crossed the distance between them into strides, his hands hovering near her face without touching. "Say that again." "Which part?" "The part about love." She met his violet eyes, seeing her own reflection fractured in their depths. "I love you." It's impossible and inadvisable and probably some form of xenological confusion. But he kissed her. It was nothing like human kisses. Ashkarans expressed affection through harmonized bioelectric fields. Where their skin touched, she felt tingling warmth, like sunshine through water. Her nervous system tried to make sense of the alien sensation, and settled on pure joy. When they parted, his scales had turned a color she'd never seen: deep rose gold, shimmering with inner light. "What does that mean?" she whispered, touching the scales on his neck. "It means my body has chosen you as Thanura life companion. It means I'm biologically incapable of bonding with Nissa now. It means we've just created a diplomatic disaster of stellar proportions." He laughed, but there was wild fear in it. "My father will, Prince Zephyr." They sprang apart. A female Ashkaran stood among the crystal trees, her scales the deep red of her nebula, beautiful and terrible, like a star-going nova. Lady Nissa studied them with ancient eyes. "My lady," Zephyr began, his colors cycling through panic. "Your bioelectric signature is visible from 3 sections away," Nissa said calmly. "Rose gold. I haven't seen that color into centuries." She turned to Kira. "You're the human who predicted the anomaly." Yes," Nissa nodded slowly. "My scientists confirmed your models yesterday. We've already begun evacuations." She looked. Between them, love in wartime. "How terribly young of you both." "Nissa," Zephyr started. "I'll withdraw from the betrothal," she interrupted. "Tell your father I found you unsuitable. My pride can survive the insult better than the Empire can survive forcing a Thanura bond." But in exchange, she focused on Kira. "You'll share everything, every scrap of data about the anomaly. And your shield theory. My spies mention you've been working on something." Kira's mind raced. She had been developing a theoretical defense, but it required resources no single world possessed. "It's still theoretical, then make it practical." Quickly, the footage from the outer veil, that was edited for public consumption. The reality was worse. Whatever is coming doesn't just destroy, it unmakes. Reality itself breaks down. After Nissa left, Kira and Zephyr stood in the garden, processing what had happened. "She gave us a chance," Kira said finally. "She gave us rope to hang ourselves with." Zephyr corrected. "When my father learns what's happened," his scales rippled with anxiety, "then we'd better save the galaxy before he finds out." Kira pulled out her datapad, showing him her shield calculations. "I need access to Ashkaran harmonic technology. If we can synchronize it with human quantum processing." "You're serious?" "The anomaly doesn't care about our personal drama. We have maybe 18 months before it reaches the core worlds. Less. If it's accelerating." She looked up at him. "I'll understand if you need to." He kissed her again, shorter but no less intense. "We're bonded now. In my culture, that's more binding than any political marriage, whatever comes. We face it together." "Together," she agreed, then added with dark humor. If we survive the next few days, as they left the garden, neither noticed. The small surveillance drone hidden among the crystal fruit, its mechanical eye recording everything. By morning, their forbidden moment would be broadcast across the empire, and the real storm would begin. But for now, they had each other, and the desperate hope that love and science together might be enough to save everyone, even those who would condemn them for trying. Captain Rowe had spent 40 years navigating the trade routes between empires, but nothing had prepared him for what he witnessed at Kello's Prime. His cargo vessel Star Whisper dropped out of hyperspace expecting to find the usual bustling trade station. Instead, they found nothing, literally nothing. "Captain," his navigator's voice trembled. "The star, it's gone. Not destroyed, not dimmed, gone." Where Kello's Prime's sun had burned for billions of years, space itself looked wrong, twisted into patterns that made Rowe's eyes water. His crew watched in horror as the anomaly's edge crept forward, unmaking reality pixel by pixel. "Full reverse," Rowe commanded. "Emergency broadcast on all frequencies." As the Star Whisper fled, Rowe transmitted everything they'd recorded. Within hours, his footage spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The anomaly wasn't just destroying matter, it was erasing the fundamental laws of physics. On the Ashkaran throne world, Emperor Vexus stood before his war council, his golden scales now permanently darkened with rage. The hologram of his son and the human woman played on repeat, their forbidden kiss in the garden broadcast by rivals seeking to destabilize his rule. "Your heir has gone mad," General Kravix sneered. "Bonding with a primitive while our colonies burn." "The humans were right," another counselor interjected. "Perhaps we should." "Should what?" Vexus roared. "Bow to the species we've mocked. Admit that centuries of Ashkaran wisdom mean nothing." He turned to his guards. "Find my son. Bring him home." "Father," the council turned. Zephyr stood in the doorway, still wearing his travel clothes. Beside him, impossibly, stood the human woman Kira Blackwood, her chin raised despite the hostile atmosphere. "You dare bring her here?" Vexus's voice could have frozen stars. "I dare bring the only person who might save us," Zephyr replied. His scales held steady rose gold, the color of an unbreakable bond. "Kira has developed a shield matrix that could work, but only with our harmonic technology integrated. While you've been preserving pride, we've been trying to preserve lives. Show them." Kira said quietly. Zephyr activated a holographic display. The shield design materialized a fusion of human quantum mechanics and Ashkaran harmonics that created a bubble of stable spacetime. "Theoretical," Kravix dismissed. "We've run successful small-scale tests," Kira countered. "But to protect entire planets, we need industrial-scale harmonic generators, the kind only the Ashkaran Empire possesses. And if we refuse," Vexus asked coldly, "then you die." Kira said simply, "We all die. The anomaly doesn't care about your pride or my species' status." 3 more colonies fell yesterday. The Crimson Nebula lost an entire fleet trying to evacuate Nexus Point. "The hegemony is already begging for human help." "Lies," Kravix snarled. Kira activated her own display. Message after message scrolled past, desperate pleas from civilizations that had laughed at humanity months ago. The Solian Confederacy offered their entire treasury. The Void Dancers promised technology beyond human comprehension, all begging for the same thing: salvation from the species they dismissed. "The anomaly reaches the core worlds in 6 months," Kira continued. "Maybe less, it's accelerating. Every moment you waste on pride is measured in lives." Vexus studied her with ancient eyes. "And what of the shame you've brought to my house, my heir? Bonded to a human?" "Your heir bonded to the woman who's trying to save your empire," Zephyr corrected. "Father, I've made my choice. Cast me out if you must, but let her work. Let us work." The silence stretched like a blade. Finally, Vexus spoke. "You have our resources, but know this: succeed or fail, you are no longer my son." Zephyr's scales flickered with pain, but he nodded. "So be it." They worked without rest in the Imperial Science Facility. Kira's team arrived from Earth volunteers who'd risked everything to help, even as relations between their species deteriorated. The human and Ashkaran scientists clashed constantly, their approaches to physics fundamentally different. "You Can't just force quantum states. Dr. Harrison argued with his Ashkaran counterpart. The uncertainty principle is a limitation of human understanding. Scientists relax, retorted. Harmonics bypass uncertainty through resonance. Enough. Kira slammed her hand on the table. Maria, try modulating the quantum field at the frequency Verlax suggested. Verlax, except that human chaos mathematics might stabilize your harmonics. We don't have time for ego. Zephyr worked beside her, translating between scientific languages and cultures. When exhaustion took her, he carried her to the small quarters. They shared scandal be damned. When his own biorhythms faltered from stress, she held him through the Ashkaran equivalent of panic attacks. We're going to fail, he whispered one night, his scales flickering through terrified patterns. The prototype barely holds for minutes. We need it to last indefinitely. Then we make it last. Kira said firmly, your people's poetry speaks of the eternal frequency, the harmony that holds atoms together. What if that's not metaphor? What if consciousness itself can anchor the shield? His eyes widened. That would require a living pilot, someone inside the shield matrix when it activates. The energies involved would probably kill them. She finished. I know, but maybe that's the price. News arrived daily of systems falling. Captain Rowe, who'd become an unlikely herald of doom, reported from the refugee fleets. Billions fled inward, but there was nowhere to run. The anomaly would eventually consume everything. Then came breakthrough, or what might be one. The shield held for an hour, then two, then a full day. But it required constant adjustment, a living mind adapting to the anomaly's chaotic nature. It works, Kira announced to the assembled leaders via hologram. But someone has to pilot it. From inside, someone has to go into the anomaly itself and activate the shield at its source. A suicide mission, the hegemony representative stated. A necessary sacrifice, she corrected. One life to save trillions. Whose life? Emperor Vexus asked, his projection flickering with barely contained emotion despite his disarmament of Zephyr. Kira and Zephyr exchanged glances. They'd already discussed this, argued about it, wept over it. Both had volunteered. Neither would let the other go. Mine, they said in unison, then glared at each other. The pilot needs human neural flexibility, Kira began, and Ashkaran harmonic sensitivity. Zephyr countered, it has to be me, it has to be us. A new voice interrupted. Lady Nissa's image materialized. I've been monitoring your work. The shield requires both human and Ashkaran elements, to pilots, synchronized. A bonded pair would have the best chance. The implications hung heavy. Kira and Zephyr, already pariahs for their love, would have to risk everything together. When? Vexus asked quietly. 3 days, Kira said. The anomaly reaches the Ashkaran outer colonies in 3 days. We launch then, or lose our window. The meeting dissolved into frantic preparations. Empires that had schemed against each other for millennia suddenly cooperated, pooling resources for the shield generators. The galaxy held its breath. That night, Kira and Zephyr stood on the observation deck, watching ships from 100 worlds work together for the first time in history. If we don't survive, she began. We will, he interrupted, pulling her close. We have to. I refuse to find you across the void just to lose you to it. She leaned into his warmth, feeling their bioelectric fields harmonize. Tomorrow would bring the greatest challenge any human or Ashkaran had faced. But tonight, they had each other and the knowledge that their love had already changed the galaxy. The stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the lovers beneath them or the darkness approaching. In 3 days, everything would change one way or another.